I want to greet members of the Board of Trustees who are here with us today, alumni, faculty, staff, most of all students, and of course our very, very special guest who will be introduced to you shortly, so I won't give away the surprise. A member of our board, Jim Axelrod, will also be on the stage, and let's talk a little bit about that. He is not only a trustee, but as you know, a CBS News correspondent, and has covered a broad range of domestic and international stories, notably the war in Iraq. In 2003, Jim was the first television journalist to report live from Baghdad's Saddam International Airport immediately after it fell to U.S. troops. He's also covered the departure of U.S. troops from Iraq and was the last reporter to leave with the military in December 2011. Jim is a member of the team honored with the DuPont Columbia Silver Baton for CBS Reports, Children of the Recession, the extraordinary multi-platform series about the recession's devastating effect on children. He was also one of the CBS News correspondents who received a 2002 Emmy Award for the CBS Evening News. Jim joined the Board of Trustees a few years ago and is deeply passionate about our mission and our students. And I would like to introduce, for your recognition, Jim Axelrod. Now, our faculty know the importance of offering students unique opportunities, and that is not only the great opportunities they have working in classes, but special events such as this. Oral historian, author, head of the Bloomfield College Broadcast Journalism Department, and professor of communication, Dr. Jean Nutter is here as well to introduce our very special guest this afternoon. Jean. She began teaching at Bloomfield College in 2001. Prior to that, she began her work with the Hagley Museum and Library to help create an exhibit and pilot documentary film on P.S. DuPont and the African American School Rebuilding Program. By the way, I had the unusual pleasure of meeting Pete DuPont IV a couple of months ago, but I'm sure he doesn't remember meeting me, or if he does. She has collected over 50 hours of oral histories of African Americans in Delaware, and she's published 2 books, Growing Up Black in Newcastle County and Black America Series, Delaware. Dr. Nutter was a recipient of the Wilmington NAACP Award in Education and the Phi Beta Kappa Leadership Award. She was inducted into the Delaware Women's Hall of Fame, and most recently, she was awarded the James H. Gilliam Jr. Humanitarian Award by the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League. On the campus, Jean can be seen around campus collaborating with students in the library and works with our students on the college radio station. May I introduce Dr. Jean Nutter.
Thank you, President Laveau, and thank you, Jim Axelrod, for making this possible. Jim, I have to say something. Usually it's very difficult getting students to come to events like this, but our broadcast journalism program is composed of about 40 majors, and I think we have about 33 of them here today. So that is really something special. So we're really excited about that. So thank you very much. I've been reminded, before I start my remarks about Gayle King, I've been told to remind you to please stay seated after the program, because there are going to be photo opportunities for almost everyone in the room. So we want you to stay seated. You'll be called up individually in groups. I have to say, this is truly an honor for me to introduce Gayle King, because most weekdays at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm standing in front, not sitting, standing in front of my television, listening for the music, and then hearing The eye opener, Your World in 90 Seconds. And I am transfixed. I have to tell you that sometimes I'm busy, I'm on my computer, and I miss that opening, and I'm just like stomping my foot because it starts my day. And so the idea that I'm getting to introduce Gayle King, who's on my favorite morning show, is just, I'm over the moon. And so you get Your World in 90 Seconds, and then the camera pans to the set. You see Charlie Rose, Norah O'Donnell, and our guest, Gayle King. Now, what you'll also notice is the synergy among the anchors. But you'll particularly notice the synergy between Charlie Rose and Gayle King. They are not just colleagues, they're friends. In fact, when Charlie Rose had his open heart surgery, it was Gayle King who I think was the first person to have breakfast with him, and she reported back to the rest of the staff and to the television viewing audience. And yesterday, I have to tell you, she's really spontaneous. And yesterday on the news, she looks over to Charlie and says, "Charlie, I think you need a tattoo, an ear piercing, and a man bun." And Charlie Rose starts laughing. And then Norah O'Donnell looks at him and says, "Charlie, do you know what a man bun is?" And he says, "Mm-mm." And so she starts putting her hair up in this man bun, and then Gayle turns to him and says, "Charlie, do you want that tattoo, the ear piercing, and the man bun?" And he says, "Mm-mm." So he goes on. But that's the kind of synergy that happens on the set. Now, I want to tell you, that's not by chance. Chris Litt, do you know Morning Joe? You've heard Morning Joe? He was the one who came up with Morning Joe. He happened to see Gayle King on Morning Joe when he was trying to revamp the morning show. So he saw her, and I quote, I saw this written, he said, "She popped on screen." But that's not the reason he hired her. It was one of the reasons, because when you pop on screen like that, you can connect to the audience. But he needed someone who was a seasoned journalist. Gayle King, for 18 years, was a news anchor at a CBS affiliate in Hartford, Connecticut. Not only that, she wasn't just an anchor, she won 3 Emmys. Not bad. So here you go. So she's got the 3 Emmys. So he's got a news anchor. But CBS This Morning, you need to be more than a news anchor. You need to be able to interview. Gayle King had a talk show. What do you do on a talk show? You interview. So he had an anchor, he had a person who could interview, and had a person who could pop on screen. Pretty impressive, isn't it? Pretty impressive. Now, she comes to CBS This Morning. She's been there for 5 years. And what has she done? She's done international reporting. She was there for the Paris attacks. Domestic reporting. She was there with Sandy Hook, and she received an Alfred I. DuPont Columbia Award with her news team for that reporting. Now, you may not know, but the Alfred I. DuPont Columbia Award is really one of the top journalism awards. So she, with her news team, did that. So she has done international and national reporting. But when I found out that I was going to have to introduce her, I decided, I have CBS This Morning on, and sometimes I'm emailing students, sometimes I'm boiling my egg or whatever. So I decided to spend more time analyzing Gayle King. So I noticed, okay, I knew she had done the international work. I knew that she had done the national work. But as I observed her more, I realized she's a person who has her finger on the pulse of pop culture. Of all the anchors on CBS this morning, Gayle King knows popular culture. A couple of weeks ago, she interviewed Ice Cube because Ice Cube is going to do a game show, Hollywood Squares, with a hip-hop theme. She was really comfortable with that. And then, you know, sometimes she makes these asides. She'll just make some comments. And a couple of weeks ago, one of my students, Armani Figueroa Richardson, sent me a text. She said, "Professor Nutter, you have to see Get Out." Well, I was planning to see it, but since my student texted me and said I need to see it, I decided to go see it. Well, Gayle King mentioned Get Out, and she talked about the many different levels of Get Out, and she said she had to see it twice to get the subtle nuances. I called a friend of mine and said, listen, Gayle King needed to see Get Out twice. I think I'll probably need to see it 3 times to get the subtle nuances. But last week, in terms of that finger on the pulse of pop culture, she was on the set and she was talking about, she was going to be interviewing Dave Chappelle. And Charlie and Nora said, "How did you get that interview?" Because Dave Chappelle doesn't talk to everybody. Well, I have to tell you, that Dave Chappelle interview, if you haven't seen it, try to see, I don't know if it's on the website, but you can probably YouTube it. It was wonderful. Dave Chappelle opened up. He was vulnerable. I've never seen him like that. It was 2 parts. And then I had to think, what was it about that? And I realized that Dave Chappelle trusted Gayle King. And as I watched her, I realized that she had a quiet presence. They walked on his property, they went downtown, but it was a quiet presence with this interaction. The woman is special. And I have to say, in terms of pop culture, yesterday, Charlie Rose, you know, he's back from his open heart surgery, and Gayle King wasn't on set last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I think Friday, Nora O'Donnell was on assignment. So they were all back yesterday, and Charlie Rose leaned back in his chair and he says, "Oh, it's so good for all of us to be together." And then Gayle King on the side said, like Peaches and Herb. Now, if you don't know what she was referring to, Peaches and Herb was an R&B group, and they had a song called Reunited. That's how quick she was on her feet. I mean, she's absolute. When I saw that, I said, she's amazing. And she just said, Peaches and Herb, and kept right on going. All right. Coming up, she is going to be anchoring a 2-hour special on Princess Diana. I'm putting a plug in. It's going to be May 22nd between 8 and 10. So I think we want to look at that. Now, you think that our connection with Gayle King is just between with Jim Axelrod, who's a board member. However, there's another connection that some of our students don't even realize. Gayle King received the New York Women in Communication, Inc. Matrix Award. So you're wondering, how are we connected to that? For the past 12 years, our broadcast journalism students have received memberships into New York Women in Communication through the Kathy Carlozzi Fund. So there's students in the audience today who have been members of New York Women in Communication and are current members. And because it's Women's History Month, I wanted to say that in sisterhood, we are connected to Gayle King. And now, we will have Miss King's World in 90 minutes. Please join me in welcoming Gayle King.
Wow. Oh my God. Jeez, Jim. Oh my gosh, that was so nice. That was the nicest introduction I've ever had, Professor Nutter. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think I just want to listen to Professor Nutter.
How's that for an
Bloomfield
introduction?
College. Hello. Hi, Jim Axelrod.
Hello there. How are you?
I am here because you do not say no to Jim Axelrod. Could I just say that to you? There's no such thing to say no to this man. He feels so passionately and so deeply about this college. And he came and he was telling me all about you guys. And then by the time he was done, it's sort of like, stop, I'll come. But it's a thrill and an honor to be here. I thank you so much. I thank you, Jim Axelrod.
Well, thank you for coming. I don't know if you think you understand what busy schedules are all about. This woman is booked 24/7.
That's crazy.
And so for her to take time to come out here is very important. I think for us, the reason we wanted you to come, 57% of our students here are their first in the generation, first in their family to be in college. So exposure to people who have made it to the top of their profession is so important because it helps them sort of set their own trajectories.
No, I was just learning backstage about the Bloomfield lift. Are you all aware about the Bloomfield lift? Bloomfield lift, that, when you come here, by the time you're done, you are so improved on many levels. I just said intellectually, spiritually, financially. I think that's something. I think that's an amazing thing. That's why I think I was raised in a house where it wasn't if you're going to college, it's when you go to college. And I know a lot of people don't have that. So this really, really matters to me.
I always think in my house, we talk a lot about accident of birth. And that
accidental birth?
Accident of birth is that sense of, before you start patting yourself on the back for having achieved, understand that the single biggest determinant for your achievement is the house you were lucky enough to be born into.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they stand on third base and they think they hit a triple.
Yep.
They didn't. They were born into the right house.
Right.
And so this is a college that is really dedicated to trying to level out the playing field a little bit.
That's absolutely right.
When you...
My Spanx isn't showing, is it? I'm like sometimes I'll be sitting on the set and the guy will go, Gayle. You don't have on Spanx today, do you?
No.
They do make them for men, just saying.
Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays for me.
Okay.
Today's Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday.
So here's a question to start with. When you are sort of looking at how you got to where you got, and you start to try to make sense of it, your journey, the lessons to be taken from that, how do you explain it?
I explain it to me, all starts with your mother and your father. And I really grew up in a house where, this was back in the day where when your parents said something, that was it. I wasn't raised, I marvel at these kids today who actually talk back to their parents in a very disrespectful way. That never even occurred to me that was an option. And certainly, my dad was an electronic engineer. We lived in Turkey when I was a kid. My mom stayed home with us. I'm the oldest of 4 girls. They tell me I'm bossy. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. But I was told grades were important, grades matter. And I was raised in a house that even if you came home and said, I don't have homework today, my dad would say, what, 6 times 6? And I went, and he goes, you have homework. 6 times 6, by the way, is what class? 36. Well, I didn't know that when I was in 3rd grade. He goes, so you do have homework. So I was raised in a class where grades matter, the way you were raised and the way you conducted yourself mattered. So for me, it starts with a foundation that I had at home.
And then what did you take from that foundation when you started to hit the workplace and apply from what had been the foundation? And then how was it applied once you started to try to climb the ladders?
Well, that hard work matters. I'm a person that it's very hard for me to take no for an answer, because I actually believe that eventually every no becomes a yes. It's very difficult for me to let go. I wanted to make myself indispensable. No matter what job you have, they say nobody's indispensable, but I wanted to be that kid that when they thought about Gayle, they would say, well, let's ask her to do it. I volunteered often, especially when you're first learning, when you're first getting on a job. And as you know too, Jim, there's always somebody who's willing to help you along the way, always. Nobody makes it by themselves. And I can remember Ralph Begletter, I can remember Pam Coulter, I can remember the people that took the time to pay attention to me and were willing to extend a hand. So for me, it's making yourself, and there's such a line between being obnoxious and being eager. And I don't know quite what that is, but there is definitely a line.
But there is something to be said for show up early,
Yep.
stay late, and never say no.
Yes, be alert and available. That's what Bill Murray said in an interview once, be alert and available. And I was definitely that kid coming up.